in the city that I live in, 50% of adults have spent time studying at universities. Anecdotally, it seems to be a time where Catholics, for the first time in their lives, may be exposed to Protestant Christians and hear the gospel. Lots of Roman Catholics become Christians during their time at university.
I have a friend who said to me, I was told by my priest from my town that the Bible was very difficult to understand, so please just hear the Catholics from their church and don't ever try it because it's too much for you. So when she converted to Christ, she had to preach herself, I can read the Bible, there's not a problem, it's okay, I am intellectually capable to do that.
When you went to university, that's when you encountered the gospel for the first time. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what that was like for you?
Now, growing up Catholic, I was convinced that the Bible belonged to the Catholic Church, would back up everything that I was taught and believed. I just didn't know it very well.
When I studied at university, for example, it was very difficult to find classmates who wanted to join the Bible study clubs that we had on campus.
Catholics come to university, depending on where they've grown up, many of them have never had a conversation with a Protestant about Jesus.
And I remember being asked to go to the most important person of the university, of your campus, and she received all the documents to be association, and she said, it is okay, you can join, but why this word biblical? We say grupos bíblicos universitarios, and she was upset with that, so we didn't got it.
Hello and welcome to Certainty for Eternity, the podcast,
where we make sense of Catholicism and Christianity.
Hey Mark, it's so good to be together again. What are we talking about today?
This week we're looking at the opportunities that going to university presents us with to have great gospel conversations with people from a Catholic background. In a few moments, we're going to be joined by Natalia Reed, who's studied in university in Europe and is going to be coming to us live from Germany. So it'll be exciting to hear some of her thoughts and observations from being a university student and a Christian over in Europe.
Yeah, and not everyone has had the opportunity to study at university, Mark, but why is it something that's important for us to think about and to look at?
Yeah, well, in the city that I live in, 50% of adults have spent time studying at university. So it covers a wide range of people. And also anecdotally, it seems to be a time where Catholics, for the first time in their lives, may be exposed to Protestant Christians and hear the gospel. And that has a significant effect on Roman Catholics. And lots of Roman Catholics become Christians during their time at university because of their encounter with other Christians. So it's a key time for Protestants and Catholics to be talking together about Jesus.
Yeah, it really is one of those microcosms, isn't it, where you can see this cross-section of society and all these different people coming together where maybe they wouldn't before. So it is a really good opportunity.
It sure is. Now, you've had an opportunity to go to university, Rain. What did you study and where did you study?
That makes me sound fancy. I feel like because we just talk about Bible college, it doesn't seem like university, but I am educated. I got the honor and pleasure of spending 4 years at Briarcrest College and Seminary in Caronport, Saskatchewan, and I studied a Bachelor of Arts in Youth Ministry with a minor in psychology.
Wonderful. How many Catholics were at that institution?
There was actually one really outspoken Catholic who was practicing. There was one, because it's a Protestant, it's non-denominational, but it's a Protestant Bible college. And so the fact that there was even one Roman Catholic girl who came and held on to that. But I did have other friends who were from a Roman Catholic background at college. And one family in particular, I'm thinking of, all three of them actually went through college at Briarcrest. And it was really interesting seeing how they came in actually knowing quite little about the Bible and how God grew them and blessed them through that experience.
So perhaps if you're keen to talk with Catholics about Jesus, don't go to a Protestant Bible college. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's right. I think that's right. But my experience is pretty particular. Mark, you had more of the normal university experience. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what it was like for you when you were studying?
There was nothing normal about my university experience, but
No?
I did study. I studied at Sydney University for 6 years. I did a Bachelor of Medicine and a Bachelor of Surgery.
Oh, cool. I didn't know.
And
So
then
you're
I
a surgeon.
when I went through medicine, rather than it being a master's or a doctorate degree, it was a double bachelor degree. And the way that they articulated the bachelor degree was that you got 2 bachelor degrees, a Bachelor of Medicine and a Bachelor of Surgery. We did very little surgery in our medical course.
Very little surgery. So
That's what's written on my transcript.
Well, it's lovely to have on the wall anyways.
I also went to a theological college and got a Bachelor in Divinity as well, but there were no Catholics at my theological college, unfortunately. So, yeah. But there were lots when I was studying medicine.
And so when you went to university, as we've talked about before, that's kind of when you encountered the gospel for the first time. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what that was like for you?
Yeah. Yes, it was wonderful. It was the first time I ever heard the gospel. It was a really interesting and transformative time in my life. At the end of year 12, as a committed Roman Catholic, I'd just met the Pope. He'd come to Australia in one of the World Youth Day events, and I was in the choir. I was a couple of rows away from him. One of my friends held his hand and waved his hand as he was singing one of the songs, and I got to shake his hand as he walked down the aisle back to his Pope-mobile to go on to his next event. That was in the year 1995, I think, from memory. So as a Roman Catholic, that's a bit of a high point, shaking hands with the Pope.
Yeah.
The other thing that had happened to me in that month is my Catholic high school teacher, who taught me maths for 7 years, who was a Christian, but I realised wasn't Roman Catholic. I went to a Roman Catholic school. At the end of our year, the end of our schooling, before we were leaving to go to university, he shared something about his faith in Jesus. And that had a really significant effect on me as well. So I'd had these 2 really quite significant experiences, one being a Catholic high point, another hearing about someone who wasn't Catholic but had a real genuine faith in Jesus. And I went to university really curious. And within the first week or so, a couple of keen Christians, doing what Christians sometimes call walk up, where you walk up to people and see if people are interested in having a conversation about Jesus. I didn't know anything about that, but they came up to me and they asked me what I believed. And after, 17 years in the Roman Catholic Church and being active and involved and meeting the Pope, I thought I could give them a pretty reasonable answer. And then they asked me, why did I believe that? And the best answer I could give was, well, that's what the priest says. And as a first-year medical student, I felt a little bit uncomfortable there. I thought I should have been able to say more than that. Not to be outdone, though, I asked them what they believed, and they were able to show me from the Bible what they believed. Now, growing up Catholic, I was convinced that the Bible belonged to the Catholic Church, would back up everything that I was taught and believed. I just didn't know it very well. So I decided to join a Bible study group to help these nice young Protestant blokes see where I was right and they were wrong. And that was where I first heard the gospel.
It's just an incredible story, and I think it's one of those things where, like, good on those young guys for being bold and brave, because walk-up evangelism is really hard. And the new challenges is you're not always even allowed to do that anymore at university in the current day. So it's really awesome that they were able to do that. And that and to invite you into that Bible study. It's so special.
I don't think any university could stop you asking people what they believe. Universities are for the exploration and discussion of ideas. That's entirely appropriate. And
absolutely.
Generally, socially, if you ask someone what they believe and they give you a reasonable answer, often the person will go, well, I've done lots of talking. It's a bit socially inappropriate. What do you believe? And, you've got open slather to talk about what you believe and why you believe it. So, God help us if you can't share the gospel with people at university.
Absolutely. Sorry, I think just to clarify, I think people absolutely have individual onus, but I do believe that, say, groups like AFES, which is Australian Educational Fellowship, is that what it stands for?
Fellowship of Evangelical Students.
Wonderful. I think they've been limited on what kind of events they can do in campus in recent years. I was talking to a friend about it recently. But absolutely. And I think for people to take those opportunities to talk to people in the coffee line and to really take advantage of getting to know the people around you that aren't just the people you've walked in knowing is really, really great. And so this worked for you, Mark, but can you tell us some of the things that let those interactions happen and make it such a rich time for the development of relationships and sharing the gospel?
Absolutely. There are so many opportunities for talking with Catholics about Jesus. One of the most important ones is curiosity. Catholics come to university, they're probably, depending on where they've grown up, many of them have never had a conversation with a Protestant about Jesus. Where I grew up, 80% of people that go to Catholic schools have a Catholic background, and only about 1 or 2% of people that go to Catholic schools would be evangelical Christians. So the chance of a Catholic person having a chat with a Protestant about Jesus is already very, very small. But then you get to university, and Christians are everywhere, and often quite visible and very accessible, and Catholics are curious. What do you believe? Why do you believe that? Why do you think that? We believe this. It's different. Why do you believe that? And particularly curiosity about the Bible is a big thing that many Catholics come to university with. So, lovingly, whimsically, with good social skills, if you've got them, having those conversations with curious Catholics about Jesus gently, little bit by little bit, with your Bibles open, is an enormous opportunity at university. But that's not the only opportunity at university. There are other opportunities as well. So we've talked a bit before about belonging being really important for Roman Catholics. Often they feel like they need to belong to a group in order to believe in Jesus, and a lot of Catholic theology points in that direction. So at university, you already belong together in that you're doing the same course, but there's all sorts of groups you can belong to with people from a Catholic background and develop and open those relationships to have Christian conversations with them. You can invite Catholics to belong to Christian groups, and that can be a transforming experience for Roman Catholics. I spent a couple of years working as a Christian worker on a university campus, and when people from a Roman Catholic background, it was wonderful. People from a Roman Catholic background would come to particularly camps and conferences and just be surrounded by a whole lot of people that are just singing about and praising Jesus and learning about him and, working hard at living for Jesus. That experience can be completely transformative for people from a Roman Catholic background. So belonging to things at universities with Roman Catholics is so much easier. The experiences that you can share with people from a Roman Catholic background about Jesus are really quite significant as well. I remember as a Roman Catholic going to the Christian prayer groups. We'd have them once a week, and I'd get to university early and I'd pray with the Christians at the university, and that experience really had a big impact on me as well. Music and singing all those sorts of experiences that we kind of take for granted sometimes can be really transformative for people from a Roman Catholic background. But the other really good opportunity for Roman Catholics is, in our conversations with them about Jesus, is the long-term nature of those relationships that you start to develop at university. I've still got Catholic friends from university that I talk to. There was a fellow I had a conversation with just a week ago who was really working hard to do good things to please God, even though he now said he was a non-practicing Catholic. And we had a chat about no matter how hard he tried, no matter how good he was, what he needed to do is just to put his trust in Jesus. This is two 50-year-old blokes having a chat. There was another fellow I caught up with a few months ago, and we hadn't seen each other for 20 or 30 years, and opportunities to talk about Jesus were just flowing. And those long-term relationships where people can see that you live out your convictions throughout your whole life, carry weight and continue to carry weight as people live their lives and make mistakes and go through various traumas and experiences. The capacity to build those long-term relationships and be able to speak the gospel into all sorts of situations of people's lives is enormous. So it's just such a wonderful opportunity for Christians to meet Catholics, develop those relationships and share the thing that's most precious to us with them, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ.
That's really incredible, Mark. And I think it is, those long-term relationships are so important, because even it's a bit different, but when I went to Bible college, I still have really good friends. And even though we were all at Bible college together, some of them are at different places in their walk with Jesus now. But I know that the opportunities will be there over the next, God willing, when we're 50, we'll be having conversations about Jesus, talking about the good old days. And so,
absolutely. When you're at uni, you've got time for those relationships and conversations. When your kids have grown up, if you do have kids, you've got more time for those conversations and relationships. When you've got kids and getting them through school, it's really the focus is on the school itself, and it's harder to bridge out beyond kind of school and work if you work, which is worth remembering because, again, if you're in a culture where Catholic kids are educated separately from Protestant kids, which they are here in Australia, there's 20 or 30 years there where that whole group of people are isolated from Protestants and don't get to hear and experience the things that we know and experience through the Bible and through our faith in Jesus. So we've got to make even more use of the opportunities that we have outside of that time. So university and retirement are both great opportunities for having great conversations with Catholics about Jesus.
I've got another question for you then. So we've talked about the general university context, but I know say in Sydney, there's Australian Catholic University, and I'm assuming they would pull in more Catholics than other universities might. So is it a good option? Like, should Protestants consider going to ACU for their studies so that they have those kinds of opportunities?
Absolutely, yes. And join a Protestant Christian group when you're there. Most Catholic universities have to have a Protestant Christian group as part of their campus activities, as well as Muslim faith groups as well. So go to those universities, join a Protestant group so that you can be encouraged and learn more from the Bible, because that's the other great opportunity at university. You can learn to think and act as an adult Christian at university, and you can delve more deeply into the scriptures and deal with and wrestle with some of those harder and deeper questions about life and God and yourself at university, because you've got time and opportunity to do that. So connect and form deep relationships with Christian brothers and sisters at university. And from those relationships, it's a really great way to reach out to the Roman Catholics around you, even at Catholic universities. I think it's a great idea, right?
And it gives you something too that's really clear that you can invite your Catholic friends to. Because I think depending on what your church context is, or having something on campus where there's regular meetings, it just makes it really easy for that initial invitation.
Yes. Sometimes Catholic institutions suppress Christians in what they're doing and how they're doing things. I remember when I was working at New South Wales University, there was a Catholic organisation that provided accommodation for people at the university. And there were some Christians in that accommodation, and they weren't allowed to go and take Bibles to their student peers within that accommodation. They weren't allowed to run Bible studies in their accommodation with their peers and friends. And it was quite difficult for a number of them to live out their Christian faith in those Catholic accommodation centres, which is it's sad, and it can happen more so when Catholicism is the dominant religion in a country or a place. But and it'll be interesting to hear from Natalia how she sees that happening in Europe. But there can actually be pressure, and even today persecution of Christians in Roman Catholic institutions, sadly. And I've seen a little bit of that firsthand, even in Sydney.
Yeah, well, how did it go for you? Because I know that you talked about some of these people you're still having gospel conversations with, 30 years later, but how has it been for the Roman Catholics that you went through university with?
Yeah, so we still meet and do social things together. We still have conversations. We share things about our lives together. We share about Jesus together. I've seen a few of them become Christian, apart from myself, from a Roman Catholic background through my friendship group. I've also seen a number of people from a Roman Catholic background become Christian when I was working as a Christian worker on university campus, and have continued relationships with them over years and decades. And it's been wonderful to see how the gospel that they first heard at university has found root and has held on to them, had Jesus has held on to them through decades of life and all of the ups and downs of life. There's a few men and women that I saw become Christians at university that are still Christians 20, 30 years later, which is wonderful. It's great to see. That's
really cool. Yeah. It'll be interesting to ask Natalia as well, because in Europe, this is just me wondering things, you tell me if you know, but is the population more Catholic than here? Because we're so far away from Rome and the old places.
That's a really, really good and interesting question. I think, and I've had conversations with Christian missionaries in Rome and in Italy. Sydney is more Catholic than Rome.
No way.
Absolutely. In the sense that the commitment to the spiritual aspects of Roman Catholicism in Sydney is greater than the commitment to the spiritual aspects of Roman Catholicism in Rome. Part of the reason for that is that in Sydney, most Catholics, not all Catholics, go through the Catholic school system. So for 13 years of their education, they're in an environment where they're clearly taught Roman Catholicism. In the Rome school system, it's a secular education with Catholic priests and nuns coming in at various points in people's education to give the Catholic understanding of faith. Protestant teaching is excluded within the Catholic education system in Italy. It's the Catholic priests and nuns that have almost an exclusive role in educating kids in school about faith. And a number of my Protestant minister friends in Rome experienced a degree of persecution and exclusion and suppression by the state of Italy, because the state of Italy considers itself to be Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
So people will identify culturally and nationalistically as Roman Catholic, but actually be less spiritually Roman Catholic than people in Sydney. It's a fascinating thing to see.
It is really interesting, because I think like that idea of belonging we've spoken heaps about on the podcast is just so important. And, you know, I was thinking, because we're getting ready to go to Italy shortly, and I was reading one of Leonardo di Chirico's books in preparation for the trip, and he was saying how when his parents had missionaries knock on their door, Protestant missionaries for the first time, they asked if they were Christians, and their response was, well, we're Italian, so we're Catholic. And it was really tied up in that sense of, well, because I'm Italian, this is who I am.
Yeah. Even
That's
the
really
concept for me of being Christian and not Catholic was a foreign one to me growing up until I heard from my Christian maths teacher.
Oh, wow.
Because for me growing up, being Christian was being Catholic. That was all I knew.
And that's one of the things that I found really interesting is the Catholics that I knew growing up, I think because it's maybe similar to Italy, but they didn't seem that invested in the spiritual side of it. It was maybe who their family heritage was. They went through all of the sacraments, but they didn't really believe it all. Whereas it's interesting having my Catholic friends now and hearing them call themselves Christians, because I think at least where I grew up, people really understood that there was, I think they think there's a or at least that's not the language they would use. Even if maybe they'd say, oh, I guess I'm a Christian, but they're Catholic. Whereas now I have my friends referring a lot more to, oh, you know, the Christians this, or I'm a Christian, or as a Christian. And it's really taken me by surprise.
Yeah. Again, it's part of that idea that the true place to find Christianity is within the Roman Catholic Church. So we're all Christians, we're all Catholic, is the kind of Roman Catholic theological position. And so the rather than using the word Catholic now to include everyone within Roman Catholicism, Catholics are trying to use the word Christian to include everyone within Roman Catholicism, being unified as Christians, which ultimately for Catholics means being unified as Catholics. So just got to be aware of that shift in language that has been happening over the last 10 years or so. It's not what the words are, it's what the words mean. So what do you mean by being Christian? What does being Christian mean for you? Who is Jesus? It's not that you're a follower of Jesus. Who is Jesus? How do you know Jesus? All those sorts of things. Because for a Catholic, they know Jesus primarily through the piece of bread in the Eucharist, which we talked about recently.
Yeah, it's true. And it's also interesting thinking about, which is also probably important for people in universities encountering Roman Catholics maybe for the first time, is how do you adjust your language so that they understand clearly what you're saying as well, which can seem like hard work because, you know, like we've talked about the idea of grace being that God saves people who don't deserve it without their help, and how it's like as Protestants, we're so used to thinking about grace, but how when we're speaking to our Catholic friends, we actually have to change the way that we're speaking so that it's clear what we're saying.
Correct. So when I share the gospel with Catholics, I don't say you've been saved by grace through faith. I say Jesus saves people who don't deserve it without their help. Do you trust that? Again, you're using slightly different words, communicating the same idea, but you're doing it in a way that's much clearer for Roman Catholics. God saves people who don't deserve it without their help. Do you trust that?
What good news. What good news.
That's what it's all about, right? That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
All right, well, I think it's time to hear from Natalia.
Absolutely. Hi, Natalia. Thank you so much for being here with us today. If we could just start, just tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us what you're currently doing and what you've done in universities.
Yeah, my name is Natalia, and I studied in Madrid dentistry. That's it. But I was born in Chile.
You're born in Chile?
Right, yeah. And
that is even more Catholic.
Yeah, for sure. But my parents, they were both evangelized by missionaries. One from the United States, they were Presbyterians, and from the side of my mother,
yes,
was an Anglican church.
Yes.
Very thankful for you all English speaker countries.
So English is your third language, is it, Natalia?
I would say, yeah. You speak Spanish, then I learned
yes,
German, where I live right now, and but English was always the language we got at school instead of French.
Can I just say, as someone that only speaks one language, I'm always blown away by people that can be fluent across multiple languages. So well done. And what a combination.
It's good to have eternal life to be able to learn more, because it's never a finish. Yeah.
I love that. And so, Natalia, you've got an interest in talking with people from a Catholic background about Jesus. And so why is that something that's so important to you?
There are two reasons. The first one is that I grew up in Catholic country. So it was my environment. But my parents, they both were Christians before they met. They got married. So it's part of our testimony, how both families got engaged with Jesus through mission. And I've seen so many beautiful testimonies from, for example, the part of my grandfather from my father's side. He was a very devoted person, very loving and everything, but you can do a lot of things and not having the spirit or the courage, motivation. And that's what my family and I always want to share about the good news of the gospel.
That's a really beautiful legacy, and it's wonderful that you get to have that in your family environment. And it totally makes sense that having that as a part of your upbringing and in your culture that you'd want to share with the people that you grew up with because you love them. And so can I ask, can you tell us about someone you've met from a Roman Catholic background at university and what kind of Christian conversations you were able to have with them?
Yeah, for sure. So many people. It was my file. So also in where I grew up, at the beginning there was no Christians, not even a church. So my parents my mother is dentist, and they both used how do you say that, waiting room for the dentistry business, to make small study clubs or Bible study clubs with patients. And but also at school, I was the only one who was not Catholic. I didn't have this subject, religion, but ethics, which meant just to do my homework and nothing more, actually. And what I've seen is that Catholics, they fear the Lord, but it's the wrong Lord. And nowadays it's a switch, because the generation Z, they are very open spiritually, and they want to engage with the personal Jesus, but not with the institution. And that is a good point that didn't happen when I studied at university, for example, where it was very difficult to find classmates who wanted to join the Bible study clubs that we had on campus. And it's they are very friendly people, very nice, and very obsessed with going to heaven and having this fear for death, for example. And for them, it's very, very difficult to understand that you can read the Bible by yourself. I have a friend who said to me, I was told by my priest from my town that the Bible was very difficult to understand, so please just hear me, or hear the Catholics from their church, and don't ever try it because it's too much for you. So when she converted to Christ, she had to deal with these things that she also always learned, and it was she had to preach herself. Yeah, I can read the Bible. There's not a problem. It's okay. I am intellectually incapable to do that. So yeah, it's a battle because they use the same language, and sometimes you think you are talking the same about the same issues, but it's not the case. So yeah.
Yeah. It's extraordinary, isn't it? At university, when we have all of the skills to learn and read and interpret and assess texts, because that's what we're dealing with most of the time at university, people still have this perception that reading the Bible and understanding what God's saying from me directly is too difficult for me. It's extraordinary.
Yeah. I think in one way it's good to know we have a common book, even though we don't have this deuterocanonical book. But because they are used to it, they have it, and they become a Bible when they do we say in Spanish, communion, when they are 12, I think, or more or less, or 10. I don't know, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But they're used to the book. They have it, but they don't read it, and it is like an old one. And yeah. And most of them, they like, for example, in Andalusia, in the south of Spain, most of the Spaniards, they do like the folklore, the traditions, the music, the passion, the feelings, the emotions you got from their meetings and processions. And that is something they want to keep, but not really to have anything to do with the religion itself. It's more something cultural.
Yeah.
And so even if you want to, if you are a Spaniard, for example, or a Chilean, and you become a Christian, it's like almost changing your passport, because it's part of of your identity, your religion, and
And so you mentioned before, Natalia, that we can sometimes be using the same words but be talking about totally different things. So that sounds like a real difficulty that people can face in talking to people from a Catholic background about their faith. What are any tips that you have to navigate that?
To listen and to ask questions. I think it would be a kind of confrontative to tell them or to ask them, please show me that in the Bible, because that's a no-go. So it's better perhaps to use logical thinking, but also try to point to some Bible verses, to spend time with them. I think even if you are not Catholic, if you are an atheist or Muslim, to spend time with people, to be friendly, to really help. And one of the best things you can get from a Christian is to point you to Jesus, and which means you need him, and not to make them believe that they are children of God, what they all say. They even say that we all humanity are Christians or are in heaven because we want all to be good people. So I think to spend time and to just listen and have patience also, because they don't know what are they talking about. Some of them, but I think I would say the average is 99% of my Catholic friends, they just go to weddings, to funerals, to baptisms, and for Easter and Christmas, so perhaps a very low rate, and they don't know what they believe actually. Which is hard to say, right? It's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what are the things about the university setting that make it easier for people to share with their Catholic friends about Jesus?
One thing is that it's really well. Yeah, you can talk about everything you want to. In my generation, it was easier to be different. Now you have to be very sensitive with this hate speech and so on. It's another thing. But and another thing is to be coherent, to be honest. Many found it very special that we stand for what we believed, and we were able to be on the entrance of university with Bibles or with New Testaments, or inviting people to, I don't know if you see that in Australia, but in Europe through IFOS, International Fellowship of Evangelical Students, there was a theater of the Book of Mark, and
Yes.
you did it, yeah. And so just that when your classmates see that you are there and you don't care about what others believe or think about you, your image, that's also testimony. But for example, in my university, we needed 20 years to be accepted as a legal association, even though the university was in the modern era, but Catholicism is still very, very present, and they have still power, political power and connections. And I remember once being asked to go to the, I don't know the name, rector, you say that, like the most important person of the university, of your campus, and it was a lady. And
we would call them the Chancellor.
Okay, and she asked me.
Yes.
She received all the documents to be association, and she said, "It is okay, you can join, but why this word biblical? We say grupos bíblicos universitarios," and she was upset with that. So we didn't got it, but this April this year, they were officially an association. So, but on the personal level,
fantastic.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
On the personal level, you always can speak to people. They are even more open than when you invite them to come to any gathering.
So, Natalia, even still, there is suppression of Christian experience, Christian groups, universities in Catholic areas. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but it's very subtle. It's not seen. It's nowhere. In any law,
subtle,
but it's a culture. I think it takes time till it changes. And at least in my university, for example, there many teachers were relatives. they knew each other, and it was a public university.
So Natalia, that is interesting. The public university still really pushing the Catholic thing, even though it's not a religious institution. That's really different, I think, to what Australia is. And so, Natalia, I guess just in closing, what advice or encouragement do you have for the people who are listening to this podcast?
I would say try to understand both worldviews, even your own one, the other, because that's a way to avoid to be talking at two different levels. I think it's good to know that first thing. The second thing is to be generous, because the same way you were reached by the gospel, others also can find the light, can be found by Jesus' light. So not to think that they don't need it, or that they are self-sufficient, or because we are not anybody. So we all need the gospel every day. So. And also I would say to look at people with mercy, with love, and to understand that they are carved up in their religiosity and the laws, the good deeds they have to do to earn the heaven. So and that's a part of that's very humanistic, very you always have to be improving, and that's very exhausting as a lifestyle. So the other thing is
focusing on yourself all the time.
Yeah, okay. The other thing is, I think we also have in the evangelical or Protestant church non-believers, and we have to be aware that also in some people, very particular cases, they do have a faith in Christ, and they just need time till they can break that unity with the Roman Catholic Church. And perhaps it's not bad to feel always alarmed when you find a Catholic where you feel you have spiritual fellowship. It could be possible. It's very rare. It's not very common. But when that happens, just use the opportunity to say, let's do what unifies us, which is to read the Bible together, and that would be very nice. And the other thing is like also that the Bible says in Philippians 2, verse 3 and 5, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, rather in humility value others above yourselves. And also try not to use the Bible to discuss, because we can find them if we want to. And it's not good to face them with this cruel reality that they are in a false institution or in a false religion. It's just better, I think, to be with them, talking about Jesus and trying to discover Jesus more than discussing about things we know that they are false. Yeah.
Rather than just tearing something down, you've also got to build something up.
That's really helpful, Natalia. And we just want to thank you again just so much for your time today and your expertise and just for your heart to tell people about Jesus. It's really beautiful.
Thanks for your invitation too.
Yeah, thanks, Natalia. So that was wonderful listening to Natalia and hearing how some of the experiences that we've had in Australian universities are the same around the world, in Chile and in Spain and in Germany, but also there are some differences and challenges that we don't face as much in Australia, particularly the kind of suppression of religion in some of those countries can be much harder. So I thought that was terrific. What did you particularly take from Natalia's conversation, Rain?
I think I just really loved how, for her, it's the community that she grew up in and that desire to reach them for Jesus and the willingness to be different, even when everyone around you is Catholic. And so I think for us to think we've got the support of our Protestant and evangelical churches, and hopefully we're plugged into good Bible study groups, and to, with that support, be willing to go and to be a source of light to our Catholic friends is just really encouraging for me.
She didn't even have a church in her village, but through her mum and her dad, she held on to Jesus. Yeah. It's wonderful.
It's incredible.
So it'd be great to get together next time and just help get better equipped in understanding our Catholic friends and family so that we can love them with the good news about Jesus more clearly and more effectively. Thanks, Rain. See you next time.
Thanks, Mark. See you next time.